Happy New Year and welcome to the very first episode of In the Corner. My name's Cash and this is a new boxing and combat sports podcast. Tell you a little bit about what I'm going to do here. We're going to talk about each episode. I'm going to go over, the big news, whatever's going on in the world of combat sports, fight announcements, rumors, whatever stories going on with fighters, just big stories, any deals going around, uh, you know. We'll break down fights that just happened. We'll preview fights that are coming up. We'll do predictions, some matchmaking. I'll give you my scorecards a lot because I score all the fights that I watch. Um, Preview events as we get closer to them. You know, and I also will cover MMA. Largely UFC and PFL and Bellator, and I'll talk about BKFC. I'll talk about Misfits. For a lot of those, I won't largely go into too much detail, for like your UFC Apex fight nights. Won't talk about those too much, but the big cards we'll do a lot of talking about, a lot of breakdowns. Yeah, I'm excited. Start of the new year, 2025 looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Usually the year kind of starts off a little bit slow, but no, once it hits mid-January, it looks like we're going full steam ahead. Yeah, and this is a brand new, from the ground podcast. So. If you have any recommendations, any comments, I've got a YouTube channel. This will be uploaded on. I have Twitter. Everything is going to be In the Corner podcast. I'm going to try and get this on as many big platforms as I can, like Apple and Spotify and such. So just reach out and, right now it's just me, but I'm open to a co-host. So literally anybody, if you're hearing this and you want to join in, just DM me on Twitter or something or email me. And we can talk. So let's start off with I'll tell you what the rundown for this episode's going to be. Because of the first episode, firstly we're going to talk about, any big news that's been going on. We've got a few headlines to run through. Nothing major, nothing's been announced per se, but a lot of talks about potential possibilities of fights going on and such. I'll go through my picks for a lot of the 2024 awards. A lot of people have been doing that. Like Fight of the Year, Fighters of the Year, Upset of the Year, Knockout of the Year. I'll go through all my picks for that. I'm also going to give you my top 10 boxing fights to be made in the new year 2025. These are the biggest, most necessary fights that, they have to be made. I do think that a lot of them will get made. Some of them are kind of fantasy fights, but, And then I'm also going to, at the end, give you my picks for what I think the UFC champion roster will look like at the end of the year, because that changes around quite a bit. So let's just get right into it. So let's start with the with some of this news some of these headlines I've written down. First up, I want to talk about the comments that Bob Arum recently made about Teofimo Lopez versus Subriel Matias, and whether or not it should be a pay-per-view. Now, he was saying that he doesn't think it should be a pay-per-view. So this fight was originally reported for March 15th. No location yet. Hasn't been finalized. He says he expects it to happen, though. I think it will happen. But initially it was reported that it's going to be on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. And Arum essentially said that he doesn't think that it should be on pay-per-view. He doesn't really believe in the pay-per-view system anymore with, so few people buy them now. There's a lot of piracy. And I fully agree with him. Not just on the piracy point of view, but mainly just on the fact that this is not a pay-per-view fight. I think that in boxing has a certain amount of pay-per-view stars, like Canelo Alvarez, Gervonta Davis, and you got like Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, and then you've got your fights that are so good that they've got to be on pay-per-view, like Beterbiev versus Bivol, Benavidez versus Morrell, although Benavidez is kind of a pay-per-view name. Regardless, I think that this fight is not necessarily a pay-per-view fight. I think it's a really good title matchup at 140, which is a really, really good division that I actually feel is kind of lost a little bit of its, some of its attractiveness just because so many of the guys in title contention. I feel like we've still got great fighters there, but there's a lot of upsets in that division where if you look at the names that are champions now versus what they were a year ago, the star power has definitely dropped down. But Teofimo Lopez is the number one name in that division. He's the number one fighter in that division probably. I think that Matias is a really good fighter for him. We know that Tio looks best against good fighters. When he fights Jermaine Ortiz, who's still a great fighter, but is not, as good of a name, as strong as like somebody like Matias, who's a former champion. Fought Jermaine Ortiz last year, very, very narrowly won a tight decision. Could have gone either way. Fights Steve Claggett, and he dominates him, wins every round, but didn't get him out of there, never hurt him really. So it's just kind of like, Tio isn't bringing on the type of performances against the names that warrant him to be a pay-per-view fighter. I don't think this should be a pay-per-view fight. I think it's a great title matchup. Shuriel Matias is a really good fighter and, lost to Liam Paro last year in a big upset. I don't think that he lost too bad. He definitely didn't win the fight. It wasn't necessarily super close, but he never got hurt at any stage. He still, fought hard and was trying to put stuff together, but he was just visibly frustrated because Paro just had a fantastic game plan. But he had another good win in November, stopped a guy early, and he's right back into the title picture. So I think it's a great fight. I can understand why I think that Bob Arum himself does not want the pay-per-view. I think that it's probably ESPN that wants the pay-per-view. I think that usually in deals between promoters and broadcasters, there is a certain amount of pay-per-view events that the promoter is supposed to, provide the broadcaster with each year. I'm guessing by the looks of it in the past 2 years, Top Rank has brought 2 pay-per-view events to ESPN+. In 2023, they had Haney and Loma and Fury and Ngannou. 2024, they had Fury Usyk and Crawford Madrimov. So the last 3 of those were all Riyadh cards, Riyadh season. So there hasn't been like a distinct Top Rank pay-per-view since May 2023. And I'm guessing that we all know that Top Rank's deal ends at the end of July with ESPN. I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of think that, okay, we need to do 2 pay-per-views before then. We don't know how many Riyadh season cards we're going to get, so I think that they may be, because DAZN is really getting a lot of them. I thought that Usyk Fury 2 would be on ESPN+. It wasn't. It was only on DAZN in the U.S. So they may be getting cut out of that. ESPN maybe, that is. So Top Rank may be kind of struggling. Like, we got to do a pay-per-view, Who's the biggest U.S. star that we have? It's probably Tio. So we got to do a pay-per-view with him. I guess they couldn't get him, a unification or another big name. Shuriel Matias is still a great fight. I just think that it's an ESPN headline fight. On the network. The only way I can see it being a pay-per-view is if you stack the card. You say, all right, let's do Navarrete, Foster, co-main, and then you do something like Jared Anderson returns against a name like Guido Vianello. That's a great heavyweight Top Rank matchup. Those are all 3. That's a great fight card. I don't know if it's a pay-per-view fight card, but it's definitely better than a normal ESPN Top Rank card you see. So I would say put that fight on ESPN, not necessarily that card. That's just a match. Those are just matchups I made. I think all 3 of those matchups should be made, but on their own cards, unless they do a pay-per-view. But no, I don't think that this should be a pay-per-view fight. I hope it's not, but we'll see what happens. Next topic I want to talk about is Conor McGregor, Logan Paul. Listen, when this first got reported, I thought it's a bunch of hubba-lubba. There's no way this is happening. How many times have we heard Conor McGregor talk about a fight, period, and nothing even remotely come true? The only time that we really got close was Michael Chandler. That was announced. That was confirmed. That was going to happen. Gets injured a few weeks out. Say what you will about it. I do believe that Conor McGregor may fight again, but I also know that he's really locked down with the UFC. And at first when this got reported, I was like, there's no way. Actually, it wasn't reported. Conor McGregor himself said it. And I thought there's no way that this is actually happening. The Indian royal family may have offered it to McGregor and Logan Paul. And the Logan Paul also himself kind of confirmed. He posted it, reposted McGregor's tweet, I think. So I was just thinking it's not real. It's not going to happen. And then we see earlier today, or a few days ago, I think it was Misfits News, the YouTube show that Misfits has. They were told by an anonymous source, I don't know who that is, that negotiations are well underway, that the UFC is involved, and that April is being targeted. And this is really surprising. I'm like, okay, wow, this may be legit. I don't know how legit that source is, And a lot of people, thought that Misfits may be involved because, KSI and Logan own Prime, and Prime sponsors the UFC, and there's a connection there. I don't think that's a real connection. I think that Prime has good relationships with both, but I don't think that means that Misfits and UFC have a good relationship or any relationship. So we'll see. We do know that Dana White said that he was working on something that nobody will believe, that nobody will expect. And I can kind of I can see it in my head here that, TKO is UFC and WWE. It's a parent company to both. And I think that this could be their first real way of really combining the companies and doing something cool. Doing something really different. Where we've heard they were going to do, and people were like, okay, what does this mean? Like, are UFC fighters going to show up on WWE? We see, like, WWE's in the Apex. They kind of promote with each other. I think that they've done, like, events back-to-back in the same arena during, like, a week or something. So there is some, like, mutual, connectivity there. But this would be the first, like, real project that they release together. And I think it's a great idea. I think that, to be honest, that Jake Paul, Conor McGregor, it's a fight everyone kind of wants to see more. I thought Logan Paul was done fighting. He's retired from fighting, I think, about 3 or 4 times now. I also heard that they're both going to get $150 million. I don't know about that. I could see it. I'd be kind of surprised, but listen, this could be one of those crazy Jake Paul, Mike Tyson level things. I don't know if it'll be that big, but it could really be insane. It could do huge numbers. We'll see as the story develops if it's actually going to happen. At first, I thought there's no way this happens. Now, when I put it together in my head, I can kind of see, where the stars are aligning, and I can see, if UFC is involved, that would explain why McGregor's doing it. I don't know if this will count on McGregor's deal, but we'll see. I don't know what the weight discrepancy is there. Logan's a pretty big dude, and I know McGregor's gotten a lot bigger over the years, but we'll see. I think that Jake Conor is the fight that they would more so like to do. And I think somebody even said that somewhere, that the Indian family asked for Jake and Conor. I don't think that UFC can get involved with Jake Paul at all. I think that Dana White and Jake Paul are the farthest people in the world from doing business together. So we will see. And I think that, they took Logan instead, who's still a huge name. I'd love to see it happen, because why not? I'm not somebody who's opposed to the circus fights, if they make sense. Jake Paul, Mike Tyson was a huge event. It didn't make a ton of sense just because of Tyson's age, but I think that Logan Paul, Conor McGregor makes a lot of sense. And to be honest, that's kind of a close fight, because even though McGregor is much better of a fighter, we haven't seen a McGregor fight in about 4 years now. We don't know what he looks like. As a boxer, how much he's improved. He fought Floyd. It's going to be 8 years ago now. Logan's not that good of a boxer at all. He's also a lot bigger. So I think this actually, when I think about it, I can see it going either ways. I think you'd probably have to favor Conor, but we'll see. I really do love this fight. Just as something fun. If neither guys are going to be really fighting, why not? Next topic, Canelo Alvarez, William Scull. This is something that Canelo got ordered to fight Scull a few months ago, and it was just, when he got ordered, I said, who's William Scull? I didn't know him. Then Canelo vacates the belt because, Canelo's a pay-per-view name. He can't be fighting guys like William Scull. He just can't. He needs to fight a name. Then William Scull, Vladimir Shishkin have a fight, very close fight. Scull gets the nod. I assumed that Scull was going to fight Shishkin in a rematch. I think that kind of got ordered, but I'm not really sure. It was a really confusing situation where they ordered it, but they also said that Scull can do a voluntary. Also, Christian and Billy and Kevin Lele Saggio, have been ordered in an eliminator. I just saw that they have extended their purse bids negotiation. So we'll see what happens there. I also heard Canelo was in, Canelo, Terrence Crawford. Seems that there's a little bit more traffic there. That could be a possibility again for May. Now we're hearing that William Scull himself is saying that he's been approached by Team Canelo to make the fight for May. And this would give Canelo the chance to be 2-time undisputed. Now, the question comes up, why did Canelo decide, I'm not going to fight William Scull then, but I will now. I think that William Skull's name is doubled. He's now a world champion, wasn't before. Had a fight with Shishkin, got some traction. Now, Canelo gets the chance to be two-time undisputed. I think Canelo was targeting the Dmitry Bivol fight in May. I really do. And then I think he expected Bivol to beat Beterbiev. He doesn't. Now they're locked up in a rematch. Canelo, really his options are Terrence Crawford, which I don't know if he really wants to do. I don't know if he wants to work with Riyadh season, and that's the reason. I don't know if he doesn't like the Crawford fight for whatever reason, if he thinks he may lose, if he thinks that it's not really, Crawford's jumping up in weight classes, doesn't think it's a real fight. I would love to see Canelo versus Mbili. I think that's really the only name there for him in the division. I think you do have guys like Pacheco, but I think that or Iglesias or Saggio, I think that all of them are a little bit too green for the Canelo fight just yet. But we will see. I love the idea of Canelo versus Mbili. I really want to see that fight. If they could do Canelo Crawford and then do this Mbili Saggio eliminator, winner fights Scull, maybe Scull fights Shishkin in the meantime. But I really thought that Mbili would be in the picture for Canelo 2025. It seems he's now looking at Scull, which, even though Scull is now a world champion, I still think that Canelo is going to just smoke him. So, we'll see. If it's an undisputed, it clears out the titles, that's fine. I like the idea of if Canelo was going to avoid fighting Scull, not avoid, but choose not to just because he's not name-worthy, wait for Scull to fight somebody who does have a name. Because listen, if Scull fights Mbili or Saggio, I think either guy beats them, especially Mbili. And then Mbili's the other champion. Canelo versus Mbili is much better of an undisputed fight. Much better. And that really garners a lot more excitement than it will if it's Canelo versus Scull. So, yeah. Next topic. KSI apparently is set to headline Misfits 21 in March, and they're going to announce the fight on Misfits 20 in January. So, Misfits 20 was initially supposed to be a pay-per-view for them. Tommy Fury, Darren Till. Tommy Fury pulls out, claiming that Darren Till, all of his, threats of using an illegal move like kicking him in the head were going to, Fury didn't want to get into that. He didn't want to risk it because he doesn't want to play with somebody who won't play by the rules. He doesn't want to fight with somebody who's going to make it dirty. And I think that Darren Till was purely just selling the fight and being Darren Till. So I really didn't like that Tommy Fury pulled out. I thought that he was pretty weak. Some people suggested that maybe he has a KSI or Jake Paul fight on the horizon. I also know that Jake Paul is gearing up for an announcement in January. So it could be either one of those guys' opponents. I don't think that he will be, at least not for KSI. Because if he were to pull out of the Misfits fight just to fight on the next Misfits card, I think that's kind of screwing over Darren Till. Regardless, Darren Till is now fighting Anthony Taylor. I think that's actually a better matchup. I think it's actually a better fight. But yeah, anyways, they announced the whole card the other day. It's pretty lackluster. We know this card was meant to be pay-per-view. It's no longer. And the reason why this card isn't a star-studded is that they moved a lot of those fights to the next card, which would be a pay-per-view headlined by KSI. Apparently, they will announce KSI's opponent on the night, January 18th, for March. Who do I think it's going to be? I really don't know. Some people suggested it could be the winner of Darren Till, Anthony Taylor. I don't think they're going to do that. Anthony Taylor's good. He almost got the KSI fight with Slim, but even then it was a tag team, so it's clear that KSI isn't interested in just fighting either of those guys on their own. I don't really like the Darren Till fight that much anyways, because I don't think that Darren Till is that great of a boxer. He had an exhibition in July and didn't look that great. I don't think KSI is like an amazing boxer or anything, but I think KSI would totally beat him in a boxing match at least. So Amir Khan is still a possibility, but I don't know if that's really going to happen. Mike Perry's one that's been talked about a lot, but I think Mike Perry would probably return to BKFC, and I think that he should. So yeah, I have no idea really what KSI's opponent will be, but I'm excited to find out. He's been out of the ring for going to be a year and a half at that point. So we'll see. Next, AJ, Anthony Joshua, is targeting the heavyweight title for a third time in 2025, but is mainly focusing on Tyson Fury. Eddie Hearn said he's going to fight twice this year. I don't think at all that he's going to get a heavyweight title shot, knowing that Usyk is likely to fight the winner of Dubois and Parker. They're fighting in February, so Usyk's going to fight them, I'd have to think, at least a few months later, like, late summer, early fall time. So I don't know when that puts Joshua to fight either of those guys. I don't think that Joshua deserves either of those guys at this point. Listen, Joshua and Fury don't have a lot of fights left anyways. Definitely not Joshua after that Dubois defeat. We know that he was interested in the Dubois rematch. I don't think there's any call for that right now at all. The same thing will happen. Listen, Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury need to fight. That is the biggest fight in boxing, as you'll see later in my list. It's got to happen. There's no more waiting. There's no belts on the line for either of them. They've just got to fight. We know Anthony Joshua's down for it. I think that if you give Tyson Fury the right amount of money, he's down for it. Book it for, late spring, early May. Wembley Stadium. Maybe you can do a rematch in Riyadh, but you need to do one in Wembley. I love that. I love that he wants to do the fight. So let's make it happen. You can do. I don't love the idea of doing the 2-fight deals. I think that was something that kind of killed the rematch for Usyk and Fury because it wasn't genuine. And even the first fight, once we finished, all right, well, that's the first half. You really want to feel the impact of having. Then it was an undisputed fight, but just having this fight, without knowing that even once you beat him once, you're gonna have to do it a second time. So, but this is a big fight. I wouldn't mind seeing it twice. Next, Devin Haney has enrolled in the VADA system year-round. I don't know if he actually released any statement about it, but I think this is a really smart way for Devin to try and get back some public favor. Because, listen, no matter what you say about it, Ryan Garcia cheated on the night. However, he did still, beat Devin Haney. Was it fair? No. Did Devin Haney have a good performance? No. Did Devin Haney lose credibility and reputation? Yes. Devin Haney did not handle that right after. The perfect way for him to handle it was hold his head high, say, I lost. And then once he finds out, maybe make a few snarky comments, some sly remarks, but not go so hard as to sue him and say all this other stuff where I think that he's really handled the loss poorly and makes him look like a sore loser. I think that this is the best way to do it, to really try and fight against drug cheats. I love it. We do know that Haney and Garcia are probably both going to want a rematch. At least Haney will. He's going to want that get back, even though he's undefeated again. But yeah, that's cool that he's in the system. And then we'll just run over these two quickly. Kenshiro Taraji and Seijo Yuri Akui are being targeted to unify their WBC and WBA flyweight titles in March in Japan. I thought that fight was going to be on their February card, which, by the way, that card is brilliant. Nakatani versus Cuellar, Nasukawa, Moloney, Tsutsumi, Higa. Those Japan cards really are so great. This looks like it'll headline the next one in March. Yeah, I love this fight. I think that that's one of the divisions, in addition to bantamweight, really all those lower weight classes that are so dominated by the Japanese fighters, they all fight on the same cards. Why not just unify? They're all there, fight. I think it's a really good fight. I would favor Taraji. I think they're both really good fighters, but I think that Taraji really is. He doesn't have as much notoriety because he is, a very light fighter in one of the lighter divisions, but I think that he's knocking on the door potentially in the next few years. If he gets some good wins, if he unifies the whole 112 division, he could be looking at top 10 pound-for-pound status. Yeah, so I love that fight. Get it done. They've been building it a lot. I've seen both of them have said they want the fight. I think it's probably already signed. It's been signed for a while. They appeared on Japanese TV together a few weeks ago, so let's do it. Lastly, the last topic, Oscar Duarte, Regis Prograis. Nothing confirmed, but they are apparently there's rumors of that talks are underway for February 15th in Anaheim, California. Listen, Prograis, I don't think that he shot. I think that a lot of people were saying that if he loses to Catterall, he shot because he lost that Devin Haney fight pretty badly. Wasn't hurt per se, but just got utterly dominated. Only landed 36 punches. I think it's actually like the the most dominant performance by anybody in a 12-round fight in terms of least punches landed on their opponent. Fights Catterall. I thought he actually did really well in that fight, where I think it was 6-7 rounds in, I had Prograis well up on the scorecards. He dropped Catterall. It was kind of a slip, but he dropped him. Then Oscar Duarte, loses to Ryan Garcia, has a great year. Beats Jojo Diaz to a pulp. The Akhmedov fight on Latino night was real close, but he got the nod. I don't hate this fight. I think it's a really good crossroads fight, but for Prograis off of 2 back-to-back defeats, I think that he has a chance to. I don't think he'll ever fight for a world title again. I think he even said that he's considering retirement, moving to bare knuckle. I wouldn't hate that for him, but I think that if he's going to stay in the sport, he takes a little bit of a lighter touch than this, something that he would be the A side in. And Oscar Duarte, this is still a huge step up for Duarte. Really taking on somebody like Regis Prograis, who, yeah, he's not what he once was, but he's still a very good fighter. It'd be a really good fight. I would definitely favor Duarte, but I think it's a 60-40 fight. I just also know how dangerous of a fighter Duarte is, and I don't know if I love that for Prograis. For somebody where he is in his career, he has his money. If he, wants to take another boxing match, I don't know if this is the right one, but we will see. I don't hate the fight in terms of matchup, in terms of like how close it is. I think it is a good matchup that wise. I don't know how much I like it for Prograis in his career and his health. So yeah, we'll see. Okay, next up, I want to give you guys my 2024 awards. I've got 12 categories here, so we're just going to go through them. Let's start with our my card of the year. Now, this isn't necessarily the event, but this is the best card. Like each fight on it. I think this is, for this category, there's really only one option. I think it has to go to the Queensberry versus Matchroom 5v5. Everything around this event was awesome. When it started off being Beterbiev Bivol and the 5v5, I was like, oh my gosh. This is just ridiculous. I kind of like, actually, that it ended up not being Beterbiev Bivol and the 5v5, because I think they're both. So the Beterbiev Bivol was the best fight to make in boxing. And then the 5v5 was one of the best concepts, probably the best concept to be done in boxing. And I think that all the matches we had, when we had that fight card, I thought that it was 50-50. The only ones that weren't 50-50 to me was maybe the Hamza Shiraz and Amma Williams fight. I thought that Shiraz was going to definitely beat Ammo. He did. It was actually a little bit more difficult than I thought it was going to be for him. But yeah, I thought that was a brilliant card. Every fight on there was just so exciting. Even when you after the fight card's done and you realize Queensberry had a 5-0 sweep, it was nuts. Plus, you still had Dimitri Bivol, one of the top 10 pound for pound fighters, defending his title on there. That was a great card. For my round of the year, one that I think that a lot of people have overlooked, but had me essentially screaming when I watched it, was Abdullah Mason versus Johan Vasquez, round 1. Mason was going to be my prospect of the year. I think he fought 6-7 times. Comes into this fight, so much hype on him. Comes into the first round and gets dropped. And he doesn't get dropped easy. He gets dropped pretty hard. Not like he couldn't recover from, but he definitely got caught with a shot and just legs gone for a minute. And I just remember watching that and just being so, wowed. And it's because he ran in there. He wanted to get the knockout. He got so many knockouts. They all come so early. He wanted to rush and get it done. I get it. He gets up. Goes up to Vasquez. Knocks him down. And I'm like, oh, my God. What a comeback. They go crazy. They're throwing back and forth. Vasquez drops Mason again. So now you've got 3 knockdowns in one round, from different fighters. Just brilliant stuff. Mason comes out in the second round, stops him. But that round was so crazy, had me bouncing off the walls. Clear pick for round of the year for me. Absolutely. Next, for my prospect of the year, it was going to be Abdullah Mason. December 21st, somebody else took it, and that's Moses Atama. This kid is so dangerous. He's he's now 20 years old, I believe. I don't know if he's going to beat the Mike Tyson record. Just when you look at the titles, I mean, it's going to be Dubois Parker. Usyk's probably going to fight that winner. The only way he can get it if somebody pulls an IBF and pulls their thing and says, "Look, you got to defend against a mandatory." I don't know if that'll happen. The only one that would be the mandatory for him, it would be the WBO, because I think he may be number one there, or at least he's really close. Another option, of course, is to fight Kubrat Pulev for the WBA regular title. I know Jarrell Miller was potentially going to get that fight. Maybe he fights the winner of that. But even then, it's a little bit like, you're kind of world champion. So we'll see. But, yeah, just stunning prospect. Just absolutely destroys anybody you put in front of him. The Dempsey-McKean fight was going to be a real test, and he just walked right through him. You can put him in fights at English title, British title level. I think that I don't want to rush him too far. I would like to see him probably get in there with somebody else. Honestly, if you put him in there with Fabio Wardley next, you may even have him as a favorite. I think that he's ready to fight those names, but you don't want to ruin it for him. So it depends. If Frank Warren decides, let's do it, you're going to fight for a world title, do it. If you say, we're not, then don't speed run him. Get him to British champion by the end of the year. Next up, my promotion of the year. Listen, if you count Riyadh season, they're the only competitor. I mean, completely changed the game. Their events were just fantastic, stacked cards, but they're going to be promotion every year. You take them out of it, in terms of real promoters, I think it actually has to go to Queensberry, Frank Warren. In terms of how they did last year compared to this year, listen, they're the main promoters standing beside Riyadh season, besides Matchroom. But even then, push comes to shove, I think Queensberry is the one that they have a little bit more control over the shows. They have a little bit more fighters on the card usually. Even outside of Riyadh season. Like for example, Matchroom. They didn't have as many cards this year. Queensberry, they had the same amount. They have different levels. You've got your York Hall shows. You've got your Magnificent 7 cards, which are fantastic. I think it's such a cool concept to just have 7 fights on a card, main card, and they're all often 50-50 matchups. The last one in London, I mean, you had Brad Pauls and Denzel Bentley was a fantastic fight. Stuff like David Adelaide and Solomon Dakers, which wasn't that close of a fight, but it was great. Great matchup. Lawrence Okoli, Sam Noakes, just such good matchups. They always deliver. So I think that Queensberry takes it. Plus you got Nick Ball fighting in Liverpool. The Liam Davies, Shabazz Massoud fight was great. Derek Chisora against Joe Joyce. They just put on so many big events last year. In addition to doing a lot of York Hall cards, which they're the only big promoter to do that. So really doing their way from, they do York Hall, they do small arenas, they do big arenas, they do stadium. They just do everything. And I love that. Rivalry of the year, I have, again, another easy pick. Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia. We don't even really need to talk about it. Before that fight, I thought, they probably don't like each other that much, but it won't be that crazy of a rivalry. That buildup was spectacular. You had Ryan Garcia just being, kind of crazy, and Devin Haney just really questioning it all. I thought Devin Haney was going to absolutely destroy him. There was real hate there. Ryan Garcia has a great performance, but he was on PEDs. So we'll see what happens now, but that's one that needs to get run back. I mean, those guys are just pure entertainment together. For my event of the year, I kind of have 2 picks. Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk 1 was spectacular. That build-up was so intense. The fight itself was so intense. It was just crazy. The first undisputed heavyweight championship in 25 years. It was magic. The other hand, you have Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, which fight that not a lot of people loved. Well, the actual fight itself was universally pretty bad to watch. But you have to look at the event and say kudos to Netflix and MVP because they just it was spectacular. The stadium looked so sick all week long, and the numbers they did, the spectacle it had, the general crossover into the main public was just, it was crazy, you know, like as boxing fans, we're a pretty niche sport. That weekend, I mean, boxing was the number one sport in the world. You know, like 50 million people got to see Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano. I love that. It was an amazing event. It was a really good card too. People forget how good of a card that was. I mean, getting Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano too as your co-main event for anything is ridiculous. Yeah, so kind of have two picks there, but yeah. KO of the year has to go to Lucas Body over Ashton Silve. I mean, H2O was just dominating that fight. Absolutely, no questions about it. Gets caught with one shot, put to sleep. I mean, I was actually kind of falling asleep when I was watching that fight because it was really late, and H2O was dominating him, but it wasn't particularly exciting. And then just out of nowhere, and my heart jumped out of my chest. I was so shocked, and it was scary. I mean, he just got put to sleep. And now Body signed with MVP, which is a little bit, you know, questionable of their morals to sign the guy who just took down your top prospect. But, you know, hey, he deserves the opportunities. That was fantastic. Upset of the year comes at the end. Bruno Saras taking off Jaime Munguia. Again, a very similar story. Munguia is absolutely dominating him, hurting him, dropped him. Saras lands one shot off the ropes and just puts him out. Well, not out, but puts him down hard. Gets up, legs are not there. I think that has to go for upset of the year, just because it was Munguia's homecoming, fourth fight of the year. Nobody really thought at all that Saras was going to bring anything to the table besides an undefeated record. I mean, the guy only had 4 KOs and 26 wins, or 25 wins maybe at the time, but it's just unbelievable. Crazy surprise. That definitely gets upset of the year. For my female fighter of the year, this one I had to really think about. Can't be Katie Taylor, 'cause she only fought once, and I actually thought that she lost the fight. Can't really be Amanda Serrano when she did actually technically lose the fight. Only other fight was against Stevie Morgan. Not that, you know, high of an opponent. Sky Nicholson had 3 fights. You know, most of them we all pretty much knew she was going to win, and she did dominate them. Then I remembered Gabriela Fundora, who had 3 wins this year as well, in addition to winning an undisputed title in November in stunning fashion, which we don't really get to see a lot of knockouts in women's boxing, and that was just a great one. It's really, really great fight, great fighter. Yeah, I think that she has to take it. You know, when it's so close, you look at, yeah, Sky Nicholson did this, and Katie Taylor did that, Amanda Serrano did this, but Gabriela Fundora made history, youngest ever undisputed champion. She gets the nod. Really excited to see where she goes in the new year. For my male fighter of the year, it's Alexander Usyk. Of course, he wins 2 fights against Tyson Fury, 1 for undisputed, 1 to, you know, leave no doubt, and he leaves no doubt. Actually, some people thought Fury won the second fight. I'm not one of those people. When you look at that fight, it was very close, but all of those close rounds, you lean to Usyk. He still got all of those rounds almost. You know, I had him winning 116, 112, which is the same as the judges. I could even see it. I could see it 117, 111 more than I could see it 115, 113. Great fighter, undefeated. I mean, really the only fight out there for him is the winner of Dubois and Parker, which I think that he still definitely beats. Yeah. Female fight of the year, Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano 2. Even though Katie Taylor's 2 up, you could see Amanda Serrano winning both fights. The first fight was really close. You can see it either way. Second fight, I really thought that Amanda Serrano won, especially with the point deduction towards Katie. I was pretty surprised that Katie got the nod, especially because it was on an MVP show. I think that she even got a unanimous decision. One of the scorecards was pretty wide. So, yeah, I didn't love that decision, but take nothing away from it. It was a fantastic fight. Just such a war. They have to do it again next year. I like the idea of doing it in Croke Park. Why not? Just, yeah, really hope they can get that one done. Male fight of the year. This one's really tough. I just remembered when I was watching it, Fabio Wardley, Frazier Clark won. The first one you could throw in there is potentially for KO or the second one. The first fight was amazing. I just remember watching it. Usually I know, okay, I think they've got this person a little bit up. When I tell it on my scorecards at the end, I was like, I have no idea who won that. And I was like, oh, it was a draw. Okay, and I was really thinking, I was like, I don't know who they give this to. And it was a draw. And that was the first time and only time I've ever seen in boxing where it's a draw and nobody says anything. That was unanimously, everyone's like, yeah, it kind of has to be a draw. Both guys just fought so well. Clark won probably more of the rounds, but also got hurt, and I think he had a point deducted. But Wardley was just so monstrous. And I thought going into the rematch, look, I thought that Clark was the one who made more mistakes in that fight. I think they both brought their best. But going into the rematch, I thought that Clark is the one who has the potential to improve. Wardley can, but I thought Clark really can. So I thought Clark would win the rematch, and that is not what happened in the slightest. Fantastic fight. I'm so happy that they got to run it back within the year. That is my clear pick for fight of the year. Okay, now I'm going to go through my top 10 fights I think need to be made in 2025. These are the biggest, most important fights, I think need to be made both for, legacy, for, the big money spectacle fights, for, each of the divisions. So starting off, we're just going to work our way up through the weight classes. I have this one written down because I really want to see it happen this year. I do think it'll happen. I think they said it may be 2026, but Naoya Inoue versus Junto Nakatani. These guys are one division apart. They're in, both Japanese fighters, both in the pound-for-pound top 10, at least my top 10. I think that Nakatani is the only guy at 118 or 122, potentially even 126, that poses a serious threat to Inoue. I think Inoue beats him, but I think it's actually a really good fight. That's one I would love to see. I think that they've got a plan for Inoue and Nakatani. They planned them out so far ahead their years and stuff. I think that they said that they want to do that fight, but it's going to be more 2026. Before, Inoue had said that if Nakatani can beat his brother, then they will, then he would, consider fighting him. Now, Takuma Inoue got beaten by Seiya Tsutsumi, and now Nakatani and Tsutsumi are both fighting on the same card. I don't understand why they can't just be fighting each other. They're the same division. It seems like they were going to set up Nakatani versus Takuma Inoue. Tsutsumi beats him. I think he should get the opportunity. So hopefully after this card, Nakatani can do some unifications. Inoue can defend his titles against somebody I think they're going to do Picasso, and then hopefully MJ Akhmadaliev later. After that, I want to see this fight as soon as possible. I'd like to see it 2025. They may do it in 2026, but it's a huge fight. It'll sell at the Tokyo Dome. Yeah, I really love that fight. Then I have Gervonta Davis versus Shakur Stevenson. Tank needs to fight somebody big. He can't keep fighting Lamont Roach type people. Not that he's not a good fighter, but he's not even in the same division. I think that Shakur is the other top dog in that division. All the time in my head, I think about who's number one at 135, and it's those two, and they're tied, and I don't know who wins the fight. I just think it'd be so big. It'd be, we've seen Tank versus Ryan Garcia. We've seen Ryan Garcia versus Devin Haney. This would be the next fight on that caliber. I hope that they could get that done this year. We know that Tank is now considering retirement. If he has personal reasons, I get that, but so far in his career, he hasn't really had that career-defining, legacy-defining fight. I think if he beats Shakur, he kind of gets that. And Shakur is somebody who he'll take the fight. He's been looking for those fights. He just can't get them. So Shakur gets past Schofield. I know he's probably supposed to fight Zepeda. I hope that he can get those fights done. Get the Zepeda fight done over the summer. In the fall, I'd like to see the Tank fight. We know Tank is not going to fight 3 times a year. After the Lamont Roach fight, hopefully he goes for Shakur. There's other fights out there for both, but this is the biggest fight in the division. One of the biggest fights in boxing. Maybe the biggest fight in American boxing to be made. Yeah, I love that fight. Next, I have Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano 3. Even though Katie Taylor's 2 up, like I said, both those fights could have gone either way. Um, just every round that they share together is just spectacular. They need to do it a third time to really settle it. First fight was in Amanda's backyard in New York. Second fight was on Amanda's promotional MVP. I say go to put it in Katie's backyard. Do it in Ireland. Do it at Croke Park. They've been looking for a fight that'll get them Croke Park. That is it. Do it next year. I mean, really, like, how many fights is out there for either of them? Amanda Serrano does have a few because she's now no longer unified the division. Sky Nicholson's a champion. Nina Minka's a champion. She's got those fights. She can move up. She can fight Alicia Baumgardner. If you look at Katie Taylor, there's not a lot of fights out there for her. If she stays at 140, she can fight Chantel Cameron for a third time, I guess. They are both, 1-1 in their respective fights with each other. They could go for a trilogy. I don't know how much demand there really is for that. I wouldn't mind seeing it. Their fights were good, but, we'll see. She could go back down to 135, fight someone like Caroline Dubois. She could go back up to 147 and fight whoever will emerge from as an undisputed champion at the end of this year. I truly do think that 147 is going to get unified by the end of the year fully. So yeah, we'll see. But I think that Taylor Serrano 3 has to happen. I think it will happen too. Then I have Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney 2. Actually, I just saw that Devin Haney's now talking about a return in March, which is a little bit confusing to me because he's done this multiple times over the last year. Say, I'm returning, I'm going to be back December or something like that, and then nothing ever comes of it. So I don't know if this is true, but I always thought that they were immediately going to run the rematch back. That was what Devin said. He said, I'm waiting for Ryan to get cleared, and then we'll fight. So Ryan Garcia's ban lifts April 20th. The date of their fight in 2024, 2025, that's when he'll get to fight again. Devin Haney saying he's going to fight in March means it's not Ryan Garcia. So I don't know what the move is there. I would love for them to rematch again just because they had one fight and it was fantastic and it's a no contest now. So, really fight for real this time with testing. Probably do it at welterweight maybe because Ryan Garcia is not going to make 140 anymore. I don't know what happened, but he's just ballooned over the last 2 years or so. Used to make 135 well, now he can't even make 140. So you're going to have to do a 147 probably, which I think Haney's okay with. I think that Haney has talked about going up to welterweight. Yeah, no belts on the line or anything. You don't need it. Just the fight sells itself. Yeah. Next is Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn. This is another fight. No belts on the line. No nothing. But y'all, this fight is so big. It's probably the second biggest fight in British boxing. I mean, they have a rivalry that is so good. And their build-up will be fantastic. It's already been built up. All the selling is done. You just need to make the fight. They just need to let their egos down, Conor won't settle for anything less than 50-50, and Eubank, won't settle for anything less than 55-45 because he thinks that he's the A-side. And he is the A-side. But, I'd love to see that fight happen. It'll probably get made at 160 pounds because Eubank is a lot bigger than Ben, and I know that he already struggles enough making 160. So we'll see. Again, if they do this fight, I don't want it to be in Saudi. It needs to be in a stadium in the UK, whether that's Wembley or Tottenham Hotspur. It just needs to be somewhere big in the UK with British fans because this is like a British legacy fight. Yeah, it's just a fight that I think that they really need to get done. I don't know if it will happen, to be honest, because they've tried so many times and they failed so many times. And it kind of feels like they may be doing that right now with Conor already talking a lot more about fighting Barrios for the WBC belt. We know that Eubank has Arislandi Lara on the phone for a WBA middleweight fight. So we'll see. And I wouldn't be mad at either of those fights either. I think they're both guys who are right there knocking on the world title shot. If they get the world title shot, then sure, I'm fine with that. But I would rather see them fight first, just for the spectacle of it. Next, I have Canelo Alvarez versus Terrence Crawford. Now, this isn't a fight that I think needs to be made. I think there's options for either one. Terrence Crawford is in 154. That's the most stacked division in boxing. He's got tons of guys he can fight. He can unify the division. He can fight, he's got Fundora, Murtazaliev, Virgil Ortiz, even a Madrimov or Spence rematch. Like, there's so many fights for him there. And then you look at Canelo, it's at 168. He does have options. We talked about William Scull, Christian and Billy, Diego Pacheco maybe even. But, none of those fights for either of them really are as sexy as the Canelo-Crawford super fight. Like I said, there's a little bit more traffic, I think, around it than there was previously. I think that there's actually conversations going on now. I'd love for that fight to get made because I know that Canelo's probably going to fight for a couple more years. I don't know if Crawford is. Some people think that Crawford already is not going to fight again. I think he will, but he's only going to fight once a year, which I hate. But he's only going to fight once a year, and I think the Canelo fight is the only one that really gets him motivated right now. He'll still fight. He'll fight Sebastian Fundora, and he'll probably beat them. But I don't think that he really is going to get excited for that fight as he will Canelo. So I say why not? It's a little bit of fantasy. Canelo's a lot bigger than Crawford. Crawford is also, just a beast. So why not? Just do it. It'll be fun. Similar to Eubank Ben. Across weight classes. This one would have belts on the line, but it's just a great big fight. I love it. Next, I have the winners of, Artur Beterbiev, Dmitry Bivol 2, and David Benavidez, David Morrell must fight at the end of the year. Both of these fights, I would have said, if they hadn't already been made for next year, I would have had them on this list. Definitely the rematch with Beterbiev and Bivol and Benavidez-Morrell is such a good fight because it's very clearly those are 1 and 2 and then 3 and 4 fighting each other. After this fight, they're both fighting very early in the year in February. Why not do it 6-8 months later at the end of the year? We know that Benavidez wants the winner of Beterbiev and Bivol. We know that Morrell wants the same, and we know that they're going to be ordered. The sanctions have said that. WBC and I think WBA as well have both said that that's the plan. That Beterbiev and Bivol are not going to duck anything. So I say let's do it, because if so, then this 175 division is just so much fun. I mean, if you get just the fights that are being made, not to mention you also have Josh Buatsi, Callum Smith, who are probably 5 and 6 in the division. They're all fighting each other. And if the winners of these fights fight, it's just going to keep on getting better. We're going to keep on getting that number 1 versus number 2 matchup, which needs to be done more. Speaking of number 1 versus number 2, Jai Opetaia, Zurdo Ramirez has to happen this year. Opetaia has been looking for unification for over a year at this point. IBF, it does, gets in the way of unifications. We know that Zurdo also is a mandatory he must now fight in Dorticos. So Opetaia fights Naika this upcoming week. After that, I know that he likes to stay active. He's going to have to wait until Zurdo fights Dorticos. Then they should be cleared to just go ahead and make that fight. Probably make it, if Zurdo can get that fight done in the springtime, you can probably get this fight done late summer, I think. I just really hope that Zurdo can, get his mandatory handled in the, first third of the year. But we'll see. I think they're unanimously number 1 and number 2 in the division. Then you'll get 3 of the belts. I don't really know what's going on with the WBC and their champion. It was Mikhailian and Badu Jack was champion in recess. Now it seems that they've swapped positions. Meanwhile, you've also got the interim championship, which was a draw. And now I think that they're going to do, I think it's Jack is going to fight Rozicki. And I think I heard Peralta and Cieslak are going to fight for the interim. And then Mikhailian's also still champion in recess. So they've got so much more, ironing out to do over there. But in the meantime, while they figure that out this year, make Opetaia versus Zurdo. It's a perfect fight for a Riyadh season card. Yeah. Opetaia needs to be in unifications. Zurdo is down for unifications. He's already been in one. Let's do it. Then up to the heavyweights. So Alexander Usyk doesn't have that many fights left. The only fight that really gets me interested is the winner of Daniel Dubois and Joseph Parker. And Dubois wants that fight, and Usyk said, yeah, sure, let's make it. I thought Dubois storming in the ring after was a little bit, weird, but it's funny because Dubois is such a funny character, and that he's, not a talker, and when he does talk, he's pretty funny, not really on purpose. And this was his attempt at trying to be that, calling out trash talk kind of guy, and it was really funny. But he's got business to take care of with Joseph Parker. I think Dubois is a favorite in that fight, but you cannot bet against Joseph Parker. After the Wilder fight, after the Zhang fight, he just always finds a way. He's in his prime right now, late in his career. Although I think he's only like 32. He's just, been in these fights for such a long time. Usyk, I think that he just had a great year, fought and beat Tyson Fury twice. Wait until February 22nd, see who wins, make undisputed for a second time. That's the move. I think Usyk will probably beat the winner of that, and after that, honestly, probably right off into the sunset. I don't know who else there is to fight. Maybe like a Martin Bakoli, if he gets one or two more big wins this year. You fight him, but even then, I don't think you need that fight for his legacy. So we'll see, but I think that's we get another undisputed heavyweight title fight this year. I hope so. And number one, no surprise to anyone, Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua. There's no reason not to, except for if Tyson Fury chooses to retire or if there's some money discrepancy. But with Riyadh season, I don't think that's going to be an issue. Would it be better if there was a belt on line? Yes. Would it be better if this was for undisputed? Yes. Would it be better if they were coming off of losses and this was, 3 years ago? Yes. But you can't tell me you don't want to see it. Anybody who says that they don't want to see this fight is lying. This is the biggest fight in boxing. The spectacle, the money it will generate, the whole attraction is going to sell probably like 2 million pay-per-views. It'll just settle the debate of who will win. I'd have to say right now you have to make Fury a favorite after close fights with Usyk and AJ's knockout loss to Dubois. But, AJ's still the way more dangerous fighter. Fury's just also the way more smart fighter. So we'll see. I love that fight. Let's make it happen. Okay, I know it's been a long first episode, so we're just going to do this quickly, but UFC 2025 champion prediction for the end of the year. So, women's strawweight, I have Zhang Weili. It all depends on our fight with Tatiana Suarez in February. I have Zhang Weili as a favorite. I think she's really good. I think she'll probably stay as champion. If not, it'll be Suarez. 125, Valentina Shevchenko. She's probably pound for pound number one right now. There's not a lot of other names in that division that really give her a lot of threat. 135, I have Kayla Harrison. She's my favorite fighter to watch in women's MMA. She is so just aggressive and ruthless. Right now the champion is Juliana Pena. I think that she'll beat her, I didn't think that Pena won the fight against Pennington. I wasn't that impressed with her. Kayla Harrison, I'm very impressed with. I think that's the next title fight to make. Really the biggest title fight to make in women's MMA right now. So, yeah. Moving on to the men's. Flyweight champion Alexander Pantoja will not lose to anyone. Well, probably not. If you look at the division, he's already ran through most of the names in there, some of them multiple times. Unless he moves up, I don't see there's a way that he gets beat. I think he's so good. I think he should be higher on UFC's pound-for-pound ranking. They have him at like number 9. He should be way higher than that. He's so good. He's just like so dominant over the division. I think that I don't even know if he's that big enough to really move up to 135, but he probably could. And he kind of just has to pretty soon. I think if he gets a few more defenses in this year, like maybe 2, he can probably move up just because there's not a lot of names for him to fight, period. I don't even know who his next contender would be. Maybe Roy Val, but he's already beaten him once or twice, so we'll see. 135. This one I'm a little bit torn on. Right now, I'm going to say Umar Nurmagomedov, but it really could be Merab. It really just depends on that fight. I think a lot of people are, just kind of overlooking Merab. He gets hate. I think he's a really good fighter. I think Umar is also a very good fighter. Right now, I'm going to say Umar takes it because he's undefeated and he's been so dominant. And I don't know, just the way Merab was kind of not ducking. He took the fight straight up. I was really surprised that they're doing this in January. I thought it'd be way later, like March time, but yeah, but he was a little bit hesitant, I think, to jump into this fight. So we'll see. 145, I have Ilia Topuria. I do think he's going to stay at 145 for at least another year or so. Defending against Volk, defending against Diego Lopez. After that, if he wants to stay and fight Evloev, he can. I don't think that he really needs to, though. He'll already have his, legacy intact, and then he can move up to lightweight. But, yeah, no, he is so dangerous, and I think you could be looking at him being pound for pound number one in span of next 1 year to 3 years. 155, the pound for pound number one, Islam Makhachev. I don't think he's going to lose this year. I don't think there's really anybody that'll beat him right now. He'll probably beat Sarukian. Oliveira rematch, I think he'll beat Oliveira again. Yeah, there's not really much to say. He's just that good. 170, Shavkat Rakhmonov. I think he will beat Bilal. I think that it won't be as dominant as people think. I think that people underestimate Bilal as they did on the Leon Edwards fight. Nobody thought he was going to beat Leon, and he absolutely dominated him. 4 rounds to 1. Shavkat, just fought Ian Gary, and that was a fight that, everybody thought Shavkat would probably take, but Ian Gary surprised us. First guy to take Shavkat the full 5 rounds, the full distance. I don't know if he's going to submit or knock out Bilal either, but I think that he'll probably win, and I think he'll probably have a pretty good title run, champion run. 185, I have Khamzat Chimaev if he fights like twice this year. Actually, I don't even know if he has to fight twice. He can honestly wait for the winner of DDP and Strickland and fight them, late summer, early fall, and he can be champ. But he is so good. He's so much fun to watch. It's crazy. He's not champion yet, and I think that he will probably beat the winner of that fight. 205, I have my man, Alex Pereira. He's my favorite UFC fighter. That may be a little bit of a basic take, but I just love everything about him. I love how powerful he is. I love how much of a character he is. The only threat really in the division right now that I see is Magomed Ankalaev. I hope that Pereira can just do what he does, knock him out, and then we can see Pereira after this maybe make another defense at 205. After that, go up to heavyweight. So actually he may not be champion at the end of the year because he may make the move to heavyweight. Heavyweight, my champion at the end of the year, and it may be a little bit surprising, but I have Tom Aspinall, but not for the reason you think. I don't think he's actually going to beat John Jones. I think John Jones is ducking him, but I think it's one of those fights that we see all the time where it feels like the in-house champion, and this is across boxing and MMA, where the guy, the champion that he has a contender, and he's kind of staying away from him, and everyone thinks, oh, that means he's going to lose. And, Aspinall's totally going to beat Jones. No, I think that Jones will probably beat him. But after that, I think Jones retires. Maybe if he fights Alex Pereira at heavyweight, he stays as champion. Other than that, I think he retires. And I think that if he does retire, Aspinall will get another fight in by the end of the year, probably against another top contender. I wouldn't be surprised if Aspinall doesn't get the immediate title shot. And I think that he will probably beat whoever that is, because I still think that Aspinall is a champion-level fighter. I think that he has been the true champion for a while because John Jones wasn't fighting. And when he did, he fought Stipe Miocic, who hadn't fought in 3.5 years. So, yeah, I think that Tom Aspinall could very well finish the year as heavyweight champion, unless it's Alex Pereira, unless it's John Jones. Very interesting to see what ends up playing out there between those 3 names. But if I had to say it right now, I think it's Tom Aspinall after maybe a John Jones defeat. He could be John Jones, but I don't know if he will. But after John Jones retires, because I don't think that John Jones is going to fight in 2026. And that will be it for the first episode of In the Corner. I know it was really long, a little bit over an hour we're seeing. They won't all be this long. This is a little bit of a different episode because I just wanted to, start off the year with some, end of 2024, start of 2025 things. Mainly it's going to be, start the episode, talk about news, and look at the fights that are going on. My next episode will probably come out in a couple days. I'm going to preview the Jai Opetaia versus David Naika cruiserweight title fight and that whole card in Australia. I'm actually really excited for it. It's been a long time since we've had a fight of any sorts, really. Naoya Inoue, Sam Goodman got delayed. Then the Ryan Garcia fight got delayed. Or I don't know if that's even going to happen. I don't really think that it has to. Ioka and Martinez, their fight fell through at the last hour. So, haven't watched a fight since the 21st, I don't think. So, can't wait for January 8th. We do that. January 11th, back on it with the boxer card with Callum Simpson and Caroline Dubois, and then the UFC fight night with Durden and Ribas, and that's going to be the first fight week of 2025 coming into this week. Thank you so much for listening. I know this probably wasn't the best episode to start off the bat. It's my first time doing something like this, but only going to get better from here. And, appreciate you listening. Like I said, Happy New Year, and over and out.